When night falls, the darkness starts to speak. Between each breath and the silence, there are whispers no one was meant to hear. This is Night Whispers, where the dark has a story to tell. It was Halloween night, the kind that fills the air with laughter and faint unease. I had just wrapped up a long day, running a community festival, games, costumes, and sugar-fueled chaos everywhere. At 22, I thought the night was over, ready to crash on my couch. But one phone call from my little sister changed everything, pulling me back into the Halloween night I'd never forget. I remember sinking into my couch, half asleep, my body aching from the long day. The sounds of laughter from the festival still echoed faintly in my head. I was ready to tune out the world when my phone buzzed. It was Savannah, my little sister, her voice cheerful yet pleading. She wanted me to take her and Jackson trick-or-treating. Tired as I was, I already knew I'd say yes. I sighed, grabbed my keys, and told her I'd be there soon. It wasn't the first time I'd been the responsible fun one in the family. Savannah was at that age where Halloween still mattered, and Jackson, well, candy was his whole world. I figured one short night out wouldn't hurt. Besides, seeing them happy always made the exhaustion fade. When I walked in, the living room looked like a mini costume studio. Savannah was standing by the mirror, carefully fixing her dark cloak and blending her white makeup until she looked straight out of Teen Titans. I couldn't help but smile. She really nailed Raven's eerie vibe. For a moment, the tiredness slipped away. Halloween energy filled the room again. Jackson strutted out proudly in his Sub-Zero outfit, mask on and plastic sword in hand. He looked ready to freeze the whole neighborhood. Once everyone was set, we piled into my car and headed to the liveliest area in town. Porches glowed orange, laughter echoed, and candy buckets filled fast. For a while, it felt like a perfect Halloween night, simple, cheerful, and safe. One house stood out from the rest, smoke rising from a small grill instead of pumpkin lights. An older man smiled warmly, handing Jackson and Savannah each a hot dog and a cold soda. "Protein over sugar," he joked, flipping another on the grill. It was oddly wholesome, a reminder that kindness comes in many forms, even wrapped in foil on Halloween night. The streets shimmered with costumes, tiny vampires, glowing witches, and superheroes everywhere. A few kids even stopped to compliment Savannah's Raven outfit and Jackson's icy Sub-Zero pose. I laughed, snapping a few photos as we made our way back. By the time we reached the last porch, the night air had turned still and our 10-minute walk back felt longer than before. The laughter and chatter had faded, leaving only the crunch of our footsteps on the sidewalk. Most porch lights were off now, candy bowls empty. Then across the street I noticed someone, a figure cloaked in black, motionless in a dark yard. No light, no movement, just watching. My instincts tightened immediately. Years of community work taught me to never ignore quiet danger. I squinted through the dark, my pulse quickening. The figure wore a hooded cloak face, completely hidden behind a black mask, no hint of gender, no sound, just stillness. Their head tilted slightly, fixed on us like a predator measuring distance. I lowered my voice and said, "Stay close, both of you. Don't stare." Savannah's smile faded instantly while Jackson just looked confused. Jackson let out a small laugh, whispering, "It's just a prank, right?" I forced a smile, pretending to agree, but Savannah's eyes told me she knew better. Her hand subtly brushed my arm, a silent question. "Is it serious?" I nodded slightly. She knew about the Glock in my backpack, and that small detail was enough for her to realize I wasn't joking anymore. We quickened our pace, the air suddenly colder than before. I kept my voice calm for the kids' sake, but every instinct screamed, danger. The figure still stood there, or so I thought, until the sharp echo of boots on concrete cut through the quiet. My stomach dropped. Those steps were getting closer. I glanced back just once, and the shadow behind us was no longer standing still. I froze for a split second, my pulse hammering in my ears. Under the dim streetlight, the figure looked less like a prankster and more like someone on a mission, tactical vest, combat boots, and that faceless black mask. The kind worn by people who don't want to be recognized. My grip tightened on my backpack strap. This wasn't Halloween fun anymore, it was danger, and it was real. My voice dropped to a whisper, steady but sharp. "Keep walking. Don't stop, don't look back," I said, eyes fixed ahead. Savannah stiffened instantly, understanding, while Jackson just frowned in confusion. My heartbeat synced with our footsteps, slow, deliberate, tense. The sound of boots behind us didn't fade. Whoever that was, they weren't just following, they were closing in. I spoke softly, choosing every word like it might decide what happened next. "They're right behind us," I murmured. "Stay calm, don't let them know we've noticed." Jackson's breathing quickened, but Savannah reached for his hand, steady and silent. We kept walking our pace, even hearts racing. Every few steps I risked a glance back. The dark figure was still there, matching us step for step. The distance between us never changed, steady, deliberate, haunting. My nerves snapped the moment we reached the car. I spun around, drew my Glock, and aimed squarely at the figure. "Why are you following us?" I shouted, voice trembling but firm. They froze, hands rising slowly into the air. Then, with unsettling calm, the stranger peeled off their mask, revealing not a monster, but a woman's face. She looked mid-30s, calm yet eerily detached. Her blank stare cut through the dark as if she were studying me, not afraid, not surprised. I kept the gun steady and repeated, "Why are you following us?" Her reply chilled me more than silence. In a flat, mechanical voice, she said, "I'm an undercover cop. There was a reported break-in. I came to investigate." It sounded rehearsed, like reading lines, not telling truth. Her tone shifted sharper, almost rehearsed authority. "That's why I was outside that house," she said coldly. "When you looked at me funny, I assumed you were the suspect. Lower the weapon, or I'll arrest you for threatening an officer." My hands trembled as I hesitated, then slowly lowered the Glock. It felt wrong, every word, every stare. No badge, no ID, just an empty threat, cloaked in calm. None of it added up. None of it made sense, and my thoughts spun faster than my heartbeat. If she was investigating a break-in, why stand facing the street instead of the house? How could a simple glance make me a suspect? Who investigates crime scenes in a hooded cloak anyway? Every detail screamed lie, but her calm stare never wavered. I felt the chill of realization. Something about her story was more than wrong. It was staged. I tried to keep my voice calm, but suspicion sharpened every word. "If you're undercover, why the tactical gear? Wouldn't that blow your cover? And the cloak, what's that even for?" She didn't reply. Her stare hardened, the blankness melting into something darker, calculated, angry. In that flicker of silence, I realized she wasn't offended. She was deciding. And whatever she was deciding on, I knew it wouldn't be good. Savannah and Jackson froze beside me, barely breathing. The woman's lips curled into a slow, twisted smile that made my stomach drop. "If you didn't have that gun," she hissed, "this night would have ended a hell of a lot different for you." Before I could react, 4 dark silhouettes stepped out from between the houses, their movements synchronized, silent, like they'd been waiting for that signal. They looked coordinated, 4 figures in full tactical gear, faces, hidden steps in sync. My gut screamed, "Move now." In the car now, I barked, never breaking eye contact with the woman. Savannah grabbed Jackson and they scrambled inside. I slid into the driver's seat and floored it. In the mirror, she still stood there smiling while the others stared blank, emotionless, like shadows without souls. Their faces haunted me, blank, lifeless, like masks hiding nothing at all. The drive home felt endless silence, heavier than fear itself. Savannah stared out the window. Jackson clutched his candy bucket, neither saying a word. When I dropped them off, relief mixed with dread. Why us? Out of everyone in that crowded neighborhood, what made them choose to follow me? The question burned all night. I kept replaying that night in my head, searching for a reason, but none made sense. The streets were packed with families. We were just 3 faces in the crowd. So why us? Then a few days later, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, no text, just a photo of my car in my apartment parking lot. My blood ran cold. I called the police immediately, recounting every detail of Halloween night. The police took my report but shrugged it off. No threat, no case. It was frustrating but not surprising. Still restless and maybe foolishly curious, I drove back to the same house where I'd first seen her. A middle-aged man answered the door, puzzled when I asked about a break-in. "No," he said, brows furrowed. Nothing strange happened that night. His calm made her story feel even more like a lie. The man rubbed his eyes, saying he'd gone to bed early for work and heard nothing unusual. When I told him what I'd seen, the woman, the cloak, the claim of a break-in, his expression shifted from confusion to concern. He genuinely had no clue. I thanked him and walked away, the chill creeping back. The undercover cop's story was clearly a lie, but I needed to understand why it was told. The realization hit me harder than fear itself. They knew my number, my address. That meant it wasn't random. Maybe they'd been watching me for weeks, waiting for the right night. What if their plan had gone differently if I hadn't been armed? The thought alone made my stomach twist. For months, I checked shadows, locked doors twice, living half in fear, half in disbelief. It took months of therapy before I could finally sleep without checking the hallway. I even installed a Ring camera just to breathe easier at night. Since that photo, there have been no calls, no texts, only silence. 2 years later, the fear has dulled, but the memory hasn't. Writing this now feels like closing a door I've kept half open for too long. Halloween is supposed to be about fun costumes, candy, and laughter echoing down the streets. But that night taught me it can also be a mask for something darker. Evil doesn't always hide in monsters. Sometimes it hides in people who blend in too well. So be cautious, trust your instincts, and never ignore that uneasy feeling. It might just be the thing that keeps you alive. I could barely make out a short beard beneath the cap and what looked like a faint logo on it. I nudged Ryan, whispering, "That guy's been watching us." Ryan glanced over and shrugged, probably one of the workers. I shook my head. No, he was in the woods during the hayride. He hesitated, then muttered, "Maybe he's a dad." I wanted to believe that, but he wasn't talking to anyone, just standing there watching. A few minutes later, I glanced back and he was gone. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last long. By 9, most families had headed back to their cabins, and the noise of the festival had faded into quiet chatter. Ryan and I weren't ready to call it a night. Curious and restless, we decided to explore the resort a bit, following a narrow dirt trail that disappeared into the dark woods behind the cabins. Ryan grinned, flashlight in hand, and said we should go a bit deeper just for one last Halloween scare. I hesitated, but pride won out. I didn't want to be the chicken. So we started down the dirt trail, teasing and daring each other with nervous laughter. The deeper we went, the more the world seemed to vanish. The music and voices from the resort faded away, leaving only the steady crunch of our shoes on dry leaves. We stopped at a small clearing about 200 feet in where an old wooden sign hung crookedly on a tree private property. Laughing, we tossed a few pebbles at it, joking about summoning ghosts, our voices echoing in the dark. Then the sound came footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. They weren't ours. Ryan's laughter died instantly. The forest moments ago full of childish noise was now silent except for those steady steps approaching from behind. We froze, hearts thudding, and turned toward the sound. Ryan whispered, "Probably just another kid," but I could tell by the heavy rhythm those weren't a child's steps. I raised my flashlight, its weak beam cutting through the dark. Nothing. Just trees. Then the footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. For a few long seconds, neither of us breathed. Then from the darkness ahead, a man's voice called out, calm, deliberate, "Hey there, boys." The voice was low and calm, but something about it crawled under my skin. Ryan's eyes met mine. He knew it too. It was the man from the hayride. My grip tightened on the flashlight as he stepped closer, his face half lit by the beam. Same black jacket, same cap pulled low. "What are you two doing out here?" he asked softly, like he already knew the answer. "You like candy," he repeated, voice low and coaxing. Neither of us moved. He reached into his pocket and lifted a small orange wrapper, a Reese's cup glinting in the flashlight beam. "Got plenty more in my cabin," he said softly. "Come on, I'll give you some." His tone was almost playful, but his eyes weren't. Ryan's face drained of color as he stepped back, whispering, "Let's go." My heart was pounding. We both knew this wasn't a game. He took a few slow steps forward, voice soft and coaxing. "No need to be scared, boys. It's Halloween, just candy. I saw you on the hayride earlier." My stomach dropped like a stone. He remembered us. That meant he'd been watching. I grabbed Ryan's arm and hissed, "Run!" We bolted down the path, hearts hammering, the crunch of leaves drowned by the sound of his footsteps following. The pounding of his footsteps echoed closer, each thud sending a jolt through my chest. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My lungs burned. My heart felt like it might burst. The trail stretched endlessly ahead, every step slower than the last. Then, through the dark, the glow of the resort lights appeared. Relief surged. I screamed for help as we burst from the trees, sprinting toward the bonfire and the startled crowd. Several adults spun around as we burst into the clearing, gasping for breath. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of the crowd. I turned back, expecting to see him emerging from the trees, but the path was empty. My parents rushed over, faces pale with worry. Between gulps of air, I told them everything, the man from the hayride, how he'd followed us into the woods. Ryan nodded beside me, his voice shaking as he confirmed it all. My dad and another man grabbed flashlights and rushed back toward the woods. They searched the path, but there was no sign of him. A few resort workers joined in, still nothing. The staff quickly called the local police, who arrived half an hour later. They took our statements, jotting everything down while we stood there still shaking. The police searched the area and warned nearby cabins to stay alert. That night my parents kept me close, the cabin door locked tight. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of wood or rustle outside made my heart race. By morning, officers returned, saying they'd searched the property again, but found nothing, no man, no footprints, nothing that proved he'd ever been there. The police said no cars were missing, and no guest matched his description. They guessed he might have been a trespasser who wandered in from outside the resort. We packed up and left that afternoon. As we drove past the woods, I couldn't stop staring out the window, half expecting to see him standing there again. For weeks afterward, I kept catching glimpses of a man on the roadside near stores, once even at school. Every time my stomach nodded, praying it wasn't him, or hoping it was just my imagination. Ryan and I stayed in touch for a few months after that night. He admitted he couldn't sleep for days, waking at every creak or shadow. But time passed, and the police never called again. The man was never found. Now that I'm older, the memory haunts me differently. It's not what he did that scares me, but what he almost did. If we had taken one more step toward him, I'm certain this story would have ended very differently, or not at all. Every Halloween, that memory creeps back, the man at the edge of the crowd, silent, watching. I still catch myself scanning faces, wondering who's really there for the fun and who's just pretending. Because sometimes evil doesn't wear fangs or masks. It hides behind a smile, blending right in. I was 12, and that Halloween felt like an adventure waiting to happen. Instead of our usual stroll through the neighborhood, my parents had booked a weekend at a small family resort about an hour away. It promised games, contests, and even a haunted hayride. To me, it sounded perfect, a cozy getaway wrapped in spooky excitement. I didn't know then that this trip would become the Halloween I'd never forget. The resort was tiny, just 10 cabins, a lodge, and a calm lake glinting under the sun. A wide-open field stretched beside it, perfect for hayrides and games. In daylight, the place felt warm and peaceful, like something out of a postcard. But as dusk settled, the woods swallowed, the light turning black and silent. What felt inviting hours ago now carried a quiet edge that made my skin crawl. The moment we stepped inside the cabin, I felt that buzz of Halloween magic in the air. The faint scent of campfire smoke and candy apples drifted through the breeze. Outside, kids in half-finished costumes chased each other across the field, laughing. My parents said the hayride would start at 7 with games before that, so I dashed out the door, eager to join the fun while they unpacked. The festival area was alive with color and laughter. Booths lined the field, ring toss for candy, a costume contest stage, and tables covered in pumpkin guts from carving. Orange string lights glowed everywhere, tangled with fake cobwebs. That's where I met Ryan, a kid about my age in a skeleton suit. He grinned and said his family was staying in the cabin right next to ours. Ryan and I spent the next hour laughing, trading candy, and daring each other at the game booths. By the time the sun dipped low, families were gathering near the barn for the hayride. The old tractor rumbled softly, hitched to a wagon lined with hay bales. About 20 of us climbed aboard, the air thick with excitement and that faint, smoky chill that only Halloween nights seem to have. The hayride kicked off with laughter and startled screams. The driver, wearing a tattered scarecrow mask, waved as the tractor creaked into motion. Along the torchlit trail, workers dressed as zombies and ghosts leapt from behind trees, making kids shriek and parents laugh. The flickering firelight made the woods dance with shadows, turning the night into a perfect mix of thrill and fun, or so I thought then. The laughter came and went in waves, blending with the creak of the wagon wheels. It felt like every other Halloween hayride, harmless fun until the lights grew thinner and the woods pressed closer. The torches ahead flickered weakly and the tractor slowed to a crawl. That's when I glanced toward the tree line beside me, and for the first time that night, the fun felt like it was slipping away. That's when I noticed him, a man standing perfectly still just beyond the torchlight. He wasn't part of the show. His clothes were too ordinary, too real. A black jacket, faded jeans, and a baseball cap shadowing his face. No mask, no movement, just silence. While everyone else laughed at the stage scares, I couldn't look away. Something about him didn't belong, and that's what made him terrifying. At first, I tried to brush it off, maybe just a worker catching his breath. But he didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink, just watched. The longer I stared, the heavier that silence felt. Then for a split second our eyes met, or at least I think they did. I felt it, that cold awareness aimed straight at me. I looked around, but everyone else was laughing oblivious. When I looked back again, he hadn't moved an inch, same stance, same eerie stillness. I forced myself to focus on the hayride, laughing weakly at the scares, but my mind kept drifting to that shadow by the trees. When the wagon finally stopped and we climbed off, I turned, once more. The spot was empty. He was gone. I told no one. Maybe it was nothing, or maybe I just didn't want it to be real. Back at the lodge, the warmth of the bonfire and smell of popcorn made everything feel safe again. My parents chatted nearby while Ryan and I ran from booth to booth, our bags heavy with candy. The fear had faded until it didn't. An hour later, while grabbing snacks, I spotted a figure at the edge of the crowd, standing alone, half in shadow, and my heart sank. It was him. It was him again, same jacket, same stillness like he'd never left. He stood about 30 feet away by the tree line, unmoving eyes fixed on us. The crowd bustled between us, but somehow his presence cut through it all. My stomach twisted as I realized he was staring right at me. I squinted, trying to see his face, but the light kept shifting, hiding everything I wanted to know. My name's Roger, and what I'm about to tell you happened 3 years ago, a night that proved even the safest home can become a nightmare. At the time, I was the new guy at work, the one stuck with every terrible shift no one else wanted. Holidays, weekends, late nights, they all landed on me. So when Halloween finally came, I was more than ready for a break. All I wanted was one quiet night, handing out candy and watching horror movies, letting myself forget the stress of being the rookie. I was living in a small house on the edge of town then, just me and my girlfriend, though she was away visiting her parents that week. The neighborhood wasn't deserted, but it got eerily still after trick-or-treating ended. By 9 o'clock, most houses went dark, porch lights off, candy bowls empty. That's when the quiet settled, in the kind that makes you notice every little sound. Without kids of my own, I spent the evening handing out candy until the last few trick-or-treaters faded away. I'd grown used to the occasional ding-dong ditch prank harmless fun that came with the night. That year, Halloween landed on a Saturday, crisp air, clear skies, the perfect kind of spooky calm. By 1030, I was sprawled on the couch, half watching an old horror movie, idly picking through a bowl of leftover candy, feeling the night finally wind down. It had been nearly an hour since the last knock, so when I heard a faint tap at the side door, I figured it was just a few late trick-or-treaters. I opened it without thinking, but no one was there. Only the empty driveway and the soft rustle of leaves in the cool night air. I chuckled to myself, brushing it off as some kid's prank. It was Halloween, after all. I shut the door and went back to the couch, ready to finish The Conjuring 2. About 15 minutes later, the sound came again, this time from the back door, the one that led out to my small wooden deck. My stomach tightened instantly. No one ever used that entrance. I muted the TV and sat completely still, listening. The faint rattle of the doorknob echoed through the quiet house, slow, deliberate, as if someone outside was carefully testing whether it would turn. Whoever it was moved carefully, either checking if the door was locked or hoping it wasn't, trying not to make a sound. My pulse quickened as I crouched low, creeping toward the kitchen window. Then I saw him, a man hunched near the back door, dressed in dark clothes. The porch light caught his face, or rather the cheap, cracked Halloween mask, pushed up onto his forehead, revealing a cold, focused stare beneath. In his hand, he gripped a crowbar, not hiding it, not rushing. His movements were slow, confident, like someone who already knew I was watching and didn't care. Panic crawled up my spine as I backed away, clutching my phone and whispering to 911. The operator's voice stayed calm. "Stay on the line, lock yourself somewhere safe, do not engage." I nodded silently, afraid even a creaking step might give me away. I crouched at the top of the stairs, gripping a kitchen knife so tightly my hand hurt, whispering every update to the dispatcher. Then I saw him move away from the back door. For a moment, I thought he'd left until I heard a soft pop. The basement window. He was trying to get in from below. My throat went dry as I whispered, "He's at the basement now," my voice trembling uncontrollably. The dispatcher assured me officers were on their way, but then it happened. A sharp crack shattered the silence. He was breaking the window. My stomach dropped, blood turning to ice. This wasn't a random burglary. He knew I was here. Most thieves run when they sense someone inside, but not him. Every second stretched endlessly, each sound from below making my pulse thunder louder in my ears. The dispatcher kept whispering to me, making sure I stayed calm, but my focus snapped to the sound of footsteps outside circling. He was moving around the house again. My pulse pounded until a sudden sweep of headlights cut through the blinds. Red and blue lights flashed across the walls, and a wave of relief hit me. The man bolted instantly, sprinting across the yard, but he didn't get far. Through the window, I saw officers tackle him just past my driveway. My knees nearly gave out from relief as they cuffed him and led him toward the flashing patrol cars. That's when I noticed what he'd dropped: a crowbar, duct tape, and a bundle of zip ties. My stomach turned. This wasn't some burglar after valuables. He'd come prepared for something much worse. The police later told me he had a long record of home invasions, and worse, he was a suspect in several disappearances. Hearing that made my blood run cold. Since then, I can't stand being home alone on Halloween. It's meant to be a night of harmless scares and laughter, but every knock or crunch of footsteps outside drags me back to that night, the night fear stopped being fun. What still haunts me is knowing that if the police had arrived just 5 minutes later, I might not be here to tell this story. When they followed up weeks afterward, they revealed what was inside his backpack: a .45 handgun, several kitchen knives, and a length of rope. That's when I realized he hadn't come to steal. He'd come to stay. Thank you for staying until the end. If the dark didn't scare you away, maybe you belong here. Subscribe to Night Whispers and let the darkness find you again next time.